Hi, I'm Gary Brown and I work on the National Leadership Network um, with Life Changes Trust. Before I did that, I was the lead officer for what was the version of the Champions Board in Perth, which revolved around a group called the FYI. I was the corporate parent and youth worker there.
And hello, I'm Craig Campbell. I am currently the Champions Board and Corporate Parenting Manager in Western Bartonshire, and I've been involved with Western Bartonshire's Champions Board since it first launched back in November 2017.
If I can ask you, when it all started back a good few years ago, what was it like when you received the funding and what was going on where you are locally for young people with care experience? Kind of what was a bit of the background to things?
I remember that time really well, Gary. To be honest, back then I was my job involved being working in residential houses within Western Bartonshire. And around about August 2017, I was one of the managers in one of our houses. I was asked to come out of that role and look at putting in a second funding application. Our first funding application had been declined, and I was asked to kind of come in and look at revamping it and putting it back in again. So I do remember it. It was amazing to get that. I think it was a phone call from memory, just to say that our second funding application had been accepted. And when we were told the plans and the amount that we were getting over a 3-year period initially, it was just amazing to think that the vision that we had in Western Bartonshire about going ahead with a Champions Board, and the successes and everything else that was possible from this funding was about to become reality. So I do remember it really well. What about yourself? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. I remember what was, I think, a couple interesting things were that there was the FYI group, who were like the sort of main participation group. I knew about them at the time before I applied for the job that I eventually got, and they'd kind of built up quite a bit of traction. There was a lot of eyes on them, so I was aware of what they were doing. But they were only being supported by 2 people as like an add-on at the end of their job. So I kind of realized I was going to be able to come in and do 36 hours a week for things, and that would only get bigger if anything. So that kind of felt really exciting. The money was going to be there. So there was a bit of, you felt a bit of luxury, that there was money there for grants, there was money there for participation activities, all that kind of thing.
I think Gary, you're right about the finance side of things. I think a luxury is a good word. And right at the beginning, we felt in such I don't know, the position just made us feel as if people wanted to know a wee bit more about us. We were in a really fortunate situation financially, almost at one point becoming the Bank of Craig, which whenever you explain to people that it wasn't just about the money, but it definitely put us in a favourable position to be so well off, I have to say.
Right.
Just strange things that without Life Changes Trust, we absolutely couldn't have done it.
That's
And
it.
that's continued right through the sort of 4-year period now that we're into. So yeah, I totally agree with the luxury of the
Yeah.
finances.
So it would be fair to say, I think, Craig, your Champions Board's done very well and been successful. What would you say are the key elements for that to happen? Is there anything that you'd kind of pick out?
First of all, I'd like to agree that we have been a very successful Champions Board, and indeed, in my opinion, the #1 Champions Board in Scotland. And I'm quite sure Perth and Kinross are, I don't know, still in the top 10 somewhere, Gary, without you. But no, in all seriousness though, lots of key elements. In my opinion, relationships are absolutely vital. Relationships across the board, starting from with our young people, to our corporate parents, to with you guys, to the network of Champions Board, relationships with Life Changes Trust, the participation events, which have always been fun. And I think getting the voices of our young people included in what we were doing was vital. It happened from day one that all of a sudden we could reach out to these young people and say, look, we've now got what we call a Champions Board. This is what it's all about. It's about getting your voices heard, and it's about building relationships with some of your very many corporate parents. I just think when we had a focus on what the young people could actually get involved in, it made it dead easy. It's just been fab. Loads from me. What about yourself, Gary? What would you say?
A lot of similar stuff. Yeah, I think the relationships, and the relationships with everybody, like you kind of said, you know, relationships with young people in a champs board, the relationships with the strategic people and the young people, the relationships within the champs board network has been really important. Yeah, and the relationship with Life Changes Trust. Like, yeah, just an unbelievable organization, which is why I wanted to work with them and move my job, because I just have never been so impressed with, I thought of like people who it's mostly about funding would never be as person-centered, willing to take risk, and be really progressive in a way, and move things forward. So I think that was huge. Maybe another couple of things. From the Perth perspective, I think one thing that was a big deal was the kind of respect thing, and that being a respect between everybody. So again, all those the relationships, but there seemed to be just a really healthy respect between people, and less chance of comparing each other. It was more about working together and stuff like that. And I felt when the strategic guys and the young people came together, you know, that sometimes maybe took a work, but there was respect was there, and I thought that was really good. I think one of the things for a good champs board is not young people changing, but the strategic bodies changing a bit, and them coming out their offices, you know, maybe dressing down a wee bit, just being a bit more chilled out, just being more of who they are as a person, rather than who they are as their job title, and all that kind of stuff. What about kind of the most powerful things about champs boards, Craig?
I think, Gary, just as you mentioned there, I think for some of our corporate parents to realise that care experienced young people are simply young people who have had a difficult upbringing, a difficult background, and in some cases they've came up as being sort of much stronger young people than those who are not care experienced young people because of what they've gone through. And I think that was very powerful for me to witness some of our corporate parents acknowledging that. And they come to me and say, Craig, I didn't realise this was such a big deal. I didn't realise fully what care experience meant, and I want to help. And just as you said there, that wee bit about dressing down, I always remember a couple of young people had met some of our more senior corporate parents, not by age, I mean by their position. And it almost reminded me of when I was in primary school and you maybe bumped into your teacher in the shopping centre at the weekend, and they were just wearing jeans and t-shirts, and you're like, oh my God, there's Miss Brown or whatever her name was, and she's just wearing jeans and a t-shirt. And for me, some of our care experienced young people, just to bump into whoever were chief executive or were chief officer or whoever, and for our young people to see that they're just normal people. Yeah, okay, they're normally known as suits and everybody else, but they're normal people, and most of our corporate parents are in a great position to offer their time and offer support to our young people. I suppose we couldn't have done the Champions Board without what we call in Western Bartonshire is our lead young people, and I know that they're called participation assistants elsewhere. We've had probably 5 lead young people in total over the 4-year period. One in particular who's still with us from the very beginning, Marilee. And we've got Anisha as well now, who, and Marilee and Anisha together are just fantastic. And they make my job really easy, to be honest, because if I go along to events or meetings and I've got Marilee and Anisha on board with me, most people are just interested in what they've got to say. You know, I can end up being a taxi driver, just getting them there and sitting in the back row. But I think there's lots of powerful stuff. I think going back to, as you say, Gary, when we first met each other and we were going along to networking events with our participation assistants and lead young people, and I know that a lot of people would probably went, oh, here comes the old guys, Jack and Victor, with their grandwains and It was like that. It was like we were going in as their sort of senior corporate parents, although we worked with them. And I think the relationship we all had with each other was quite outstanding. It's just something that I think maybe we don't blow our own trumpets enough when we're good at what we do. And I mean that across the board for everyone. But I think for me, it was just obvious to see when we were all in the networking situation that everybody got on with everybody. You didn't need to know who the lead young people or participation assistants were. When you were in their company for half an hour, it was as if you'd known them forever.
And I think, you know, things, you know, like everything that we've done is staff support and champs board. It's all about change and trying to make change happen. And, you know, that has happened at the speed we all want, probably not, but it's happened slowly. I think maybe one of the biggest things I saw in Perth was maybe practice changing. You know, young people going, well, we should be doing a workshop on language because people don't use the best language, or we should do a workshop on this or that. That they're directing. And then, you know, I could help them coordinate that, me and other members of staff, and then they would deliver it. And again, it's like what you were saying about how you're like the taxi driver and stuff like that. Because who wants to listen to a couple of Jack and Victor when there's young people with passion and knowledge and stuff like that? That's where it's at. And but there's nothing better than you maybe introducing yourself and then you just stand back and let them be brilliant. I loved that. I totally loved that. And I still have the fondest memories of just watching young people be brilliant while I'm leaning against the wall, effectively watching it all. Great stuff. So we've kind of talked about lots of positive stuff there. So what about challenges? Is there anything that you think, ooh?
The COVID challenge has been a massive challenge and continues to be so in Western Bartonshire, but we are coming out the other side of it. We're now looking at getting events again together. We're coming up to the festive period for this year, and unlike last year, we're now planning events where, you know, through the government's advice, obviously, but we're planning events where we're still able to socialise with young people and get out there. And I suppose finally for me, one of the challenges is about sustainability. We were put in a fantastic situation through Life Changes Trust for the first 3 or 4 years of our project. And it is about persuading our more senior managers and our finance department that the Champions Board needs to stay.
So one more question to ask Craig, and then that's our chat done. Have you got any reflections to share about sort of Life Changes Trust and the strategic investment in Champs boards?
If I say anything better about them, they'll just not be able to get out of their office with their heads being so big, I suppose, Gary. But listen, I think the work's not only had an impact on us as a local authority, but it's probably had an impact on me personally as well. I know that a few years ago, during my career, something like this to come along for me to become involved in was a bit of a breath of fresh air for me as well. I've always liked to have some fun. I've always liked to have a laugh and a joke, but this gave me a kind of reboot, if you like, and a refocus on children and young people. In my previous role as a manager, you kind of lose that little bit of working directly with young people. And I kind of needed to get that back at that stage in my life, and I got that back almost instantly with Life Changes Trust. So that in turn, because it affected me personally in a positive way, it then had a positive impact on my sort of professional work as well. We've always explained to anybody that our Champions Board is a platform for care experienced young people to get to know some of their corporate parents. That's it. Simple as that, nothing complicated. Mm-hmm. Now, from that platform, once you get to know a corporate parent and once you build that relationship up, that's when it becomes that you're able to speak about things that you maybe wouldn't be able to speak about before, because people get to know each other, they get to build up that trust in each other, and they get to build those strong positive relationships. And when you've got those positive relationships, it makes it a lot easier to discuss things. So I think there's loads we could talk about. We could be here all day. Yeah. But as my battery starts to run down on my phone here, I'm just a bit worried that we get booted out at the last minute. But no, it's just, I could go on forever. There's just been so many memories and so many things I probably forgot to mention, but the Life Changes Trust have just been fabulous.